Hi there, my name is Emily Roberts, and I am going to be completing the presentation on case study 4. So my client is currently 4 years old. They were diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder back in January of 2022. He currently receives intensive one-on-one ABA services for 38 hours a week, so he's a full-time client. He also receives speech for 1 hour a week and OT 1 hour per week. His current skill repertoire is that he can communicate almost all of his wants and needs with about 3 to 7 word sentences. He initiates conversations, he engages in cooperative play with peers, and he can also write all of his letters in the alphabet, including his name, too. His skill deficits is he's not fully toilet trained. He communicates, but with some grammatical errors occasionally. So we just kind of have to slow him down with what he's trying to say. He engages in screaming behavior when he does not know the answer to a question. So he is also transitioning to a general education classroom with supports in the upcoming school year. So we really just want to get his behaviors under control and also just continue to grow his skill repertoire. So as I mentioned before, this client does engage in screaming behavior. The operational definition of screaming is any instance when the client emits a high-pitched noise that's louder than normal conversation level outside the context of play. So one instance ends with 3 seconds of the absence of screaming behavior. So an example of this would be if the client and the RBT are completing a table time and the RBT asks the client, "What color is your shoe?" And the client screams. A non-example would be the client and the RBT are in the playroom engaging in chase. The client tags the RBT and shouts, "Gotcha," above normal conversation level. So that's within play. That wouldn't count as a scream. So after completing a functional analysis, we learned that the function of the screaming behavior was to escape a difficult task. So why are we targeting this behavior? The client is getting ready to transition to the general education classroom in the upcoming school year. So that would be a very big distraction to his learning, the others learning around him. And we just would like to get this under control before he goes to his new placement. So the response class that we're looking for within the screaming. So a response class is a set of behaviors that have different topographies, but they all serve the same function for the individual, or they have the same effect on the environment. So again, the function of this client's screaming behavior is to escape a difficult task. A few examples of other responses in the same class would be just getting up and walking away, stating "I need a break" or "I don't know," or not emitting any noise. So looking at rule governed behavior, this is when you do not engage in a specific behavior, when you do not engage in a specific behavior, not because you have came in contact with the contingencies before, but because of a rule that someone told you about what could occur if you do not engage in behavior. So some examples of just general rule governed behavior is when you haven't got a speeding ticket before, but you obey the traffic laws and do not speed. Another example would be you had never got hit by a car, or have seen someone got hit by a car, but you still look both ways before you cross the street. Okay, so the intervention that we're looking at here is rule governed behavior intervention. So if the client's never been to Chuck E. Cheese before, but the client's mom tells him, "If you do not scream at your teacher all week and ask for help in a calm voice, I will take you to Chuck E. Cheese this weekend." So the response is not, or the consequence is not immediate. He has to wait all week to be able to go to Chuck E. Cheese. So why did we choose this intervention? We needed to find something that was reinforcing enough to motivate the client to stop screaming at his teacher. And this intervention can also teach intrinsic motivation since the consequence is not immediate. So all week, the client has to tell himself, okay, if I don't scream, I get to go to Chuck E. Cheese. If I don't scream, I get to go to Chuck E. Cheese. So instead of having like a tangible reinforcer right in front of him, he's thinking to himself, okay, I have to motivate myself to not scream to get what I want. So continuing to look at this intervention, each week the client's mom will decide a different place to take the client if he does not engage in screaming behavior, but instead ask for help in a calm way. So after 3 consecutive weeks with no screaming, we will begin to fade out the reinforcement. The next step is for the client to work for time playing with his tablet at home. So again, if he doesn't scream all week, he gets some tablet time at the end of the week. After 2 consecutive weeks with no screaming behavior, the reinforcement will fade out again. So the next step is for the client to work for a special dessert at the end of the week, like a piece of cake, cookie, etc. And then this process will continue until we completely fade out the reinforcement to just intermediate social praise. So the outcome, after 7 consecutive weeks of this intervention, where the client did not engage in one instance of screaming and instead manding in a calm voice as an alternative, the reinforcement was faded out completely to just intermediate social praise. So the client is now learning so many new skills because since we're not engaging in the screaming behavior, we have all that time. The RBTs can work on different programs, teaching them different skills, and just continuing to improve his skill repertoire. We did come in contact with one obstacle during this intervention, and that was fading out the schedule of reinforcement. So the client, once we threw Chuck E. Cheese into the mix, he just kept talking about Chuck E. Cheese, and that's really all he wanted to work for. And that can get a little bit expensive for mom to take him to Chuck E. Cheese at the end of every week. So we instead conducted a preference assessment to find out what other items or activities would work well as reinforcers for this client. And we learned that he really likes the tablet and different desserts. So that is why we went with those options. And instead of just continuing to work for going to a different location that can get expensive. And then here is my references. Thank you so much.